You cannot stop any kind of natural disaster. You cannot control the weather. We can control a lot less than we ever think that we can control. Most of all, you can't control other people. I know you think you can control your spouse, but let me tell you, you can be married for 2.5 seconds and you will realize that you cannot control anybody but yourself. In the nation of Australia, we have this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if you have that here in America, but basically we like to pull down people. We don't want anybody to come up out of the crowd, anyone to seem like they're going too far. If they think that you're a little bit too big for your boots, they're going to pull you down to size. So not only did I grow up in a family that was all very, be careful, you're going to have an accident, don't step out, you might die. I also grew up in a culture that was, don't stick your head up out of the crowd. Don't try to achieve something that anybody else has done. Just stay with the status quo. Normal is nice, normal is good. So in Australia, I grew up with these kind of sayings, and perhaps you can finish the sentence if you know what they say, because basically we're programmed to stay safe. So there's sayings like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If it is too good to be true, it probably is. If it can go wrong, it will. Everything that goes up, must down. Keep both feet. Don't count your chickens. See, you all had a negative Greek mother as well. That's what I'm convinced about. And I guarantee you everyone at home answered every one of those as well, because that's what we're brought up with. We're brought up to believe you've got to stay safe. Don't get too excited. Don't believe for too much. The sad thing is when that comes over into our Christianity, where people are, don't expect God to do too much. Don't believe God for too much. Just stay safe. Stay in the boat. Just stay with the status quo. But the fact is that so many of us live our lives in fear. We live our lives just in what we perceive to be the safety of this little world that I can control, and we never step out and up and into the purpose of God for our own lives, because faith is all about risk. Faith is actually doing something that we can't do because we need God to do it. And the enemy, if he can't take our soul, so if we are saved and he can't get us, what he's going to try to do is make us live safe, so that we never step out in faith and do what God has called us to do. Without faith, the scripture says it's impossible to please God. And I want to please God, so I want to live a life of risk and I want to live a life of faith. If you're going to move forward, then you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. For some people, me even starting like this is making you nervous. You're like going, where's the remote control? Where's the remote control? You're like freaking out going, what do you mean I've got to leave my comfort zone? Because fear paralyzes us. Fear cripples us. Fear, and in the world today with what's happening economically and politically and morally, socially, people are freaking out left, right and center. And what that does is causes us to pull back. But in this series, the next couple of weeks, I'm believing God that we are going to not give way to fear any longer, because God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And we're going to step out in faith and do what God has called us to do. Because the truth is, even if you think I'm living a nice, safe, comfortable life, you have to understand that just living is risky. Just being alive you can't avoid risk if you try. Woven into the very fabric of our finite being is this whole idea of risk, because we're going to die one day. All of us are, no matter what. So no matter what happens, our body is dying from the moment that it's born. So you cannot avoid risk. Look, how many of us could avoid a natural disaster if we tried? You can't. No one can. You see hurricanes that hit, cyclones that hit, tornadoes that hit. You can go and hide in your bed and pull up the covers, but you know what? If that tornado is going to hit, it's going to hit. And I think a lot of us, we try to live our Christian lives like we're in bed with the covers, and if we don't know it's going to hit, then it's not going to hit us. It's going to bypass us, but that isn't exactly the case of life. You cannot stop any kind of natural disaster. You cannot control the weather. We can control a lot less than we ever think that we can control. Most of all, you can't control other people. I know you think you can control your spouse, but let me tell you, you can be married for 2.5 seconds and you will realize that you cannot control anybody but yourself. And so what we have to do is learn to take steps of faith. I was flying. I fly hundreds of thousands of miles every year. It's what I do. I travel the world and teach. And so as one day I was flying from Chicago to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I remember the plane took off. Everything seems normal. I do, at least 2 or 3 flights a week, so this is very normal for me. The plane goes up above the clouds, which is where you kind of want the plane to be, up there. And then after about 5 minutes, the captain comes over the loudspeaker and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, there is no need to panic." To which I was thinking, I actually wasn't panicking until you just made that announcement. I was not panicking. I was really happy drinking my water with no ice. And so at that moment, this is what he said. He said, "We are having problems with the landing gear." He said, "We can't get the gear up. We do not know what is still attached. So we're going to turn around and try to land in Chicago." Now, can I just tell you, at 35,000 feet, there are certain words you do not want in the same sentence. One of those is try to land. You know, it's like landing would be nice, not try. Well, let me just tell you, at that moment, the spirit of atheism left the airplane. So it really did. From the back to the front, I could hear people crying out, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, Mary, the donkey. I mean, everything. Everyone was like freaking out at that moment. And you know what I found out that day? Flying is risky. I couldn't avoid it. So what do? Do I not do what God has called me to do because flying is risky? You cannot avoid risk if you try.
Friend, because of your partnership, the impact that TBN is making around the world for Jesus is miraculous. So to say thank you for your gift of support in any amount, we'll send you Saturdays with Billy, written by Dr. Don Wilton. Please go to tbn.org/Saturdays with Billy, and thank you for being a part of this global television ministry.